And we are live. Welcome to Studio Synergy number 27. Welcome, everybody. If you haven't seen the show before, it's artists and writers and creators talking about art and the business of art. Art being all that we do. So today, from left to right on my screen, we have Ben. Hey, Ben.
Hey, what's up? Ben Jones here.
You are a Kickstarter success story.
Well, I mean, we haven't crossed the line. I mean, we crossed the line, but it's still 30 days, so don't give anybody any ideas about backing out or anything.
True, true. You want to just give a brief description of what you do and who you are?
Uh, well, currently I am the penciler, inker, and writer for my very own creator-owned book called ASGARD. You can find it on Kickstarter, you can find it on Facebook, and you can find me on Twitter.
Awesome. And then we have Eric. Hey, Eric.
Greetings. Yeah, I'm a freelance artist. I have my own story that I'll be working on here soon. I do lessons as well on YouTube and other websites that allow for teaching. But yeah, you can find me just by looking up my name, Eric Faris, spelled Faris. And you can find me on Tumblr. I think I'm on Instagram. YouTube especially, because that's where I do a lot of my main stuff.
Cool. Welcome, Eric. And we have Les.
Howdy, folks. Hey, I'm. All right, my name's Les Garner. I'm the artist, owner, whatever you want to call it. There's a handful of different stupid titles I end up wearing from job to job of a little studio in Cincinnati, Ohio called 6S1 Media. And what we do here is a variety of things that include comics. I started out as started my career a long, long time ago as a comic book artist and writer, and then out of that grew into 3D modeling, animation, special effects, a lot of things like that. And so my business kind of incorporates all these things together. And in specific terms of comics, right now, the comic project that I've been working on for a while, which Pete's kind of been talking to me a little bit about here and there, and kind of, I guess, mentoring me a little bit with, is giving me a sounding board on, is this thing called Apocalypse Girl, which I am not a webcam worthy person. So instead of throwing my mug on screen, I'm just saying here's art because that's what matters. Um, but um, but yeah, that's what I do. I've got a number of other things. Like I said, we do 3D modeling and animation, which is kind of what pays most of the bills. Um, but comics are my first love, and I'm about just about halfway through what is set at about 120-page graphic novel called Apocalypse Girl right now. So that's my deal.
Yeah, and it looks amazing.
Thanks.
And we have, yeah, we have Pippa for the first time,
Hello.
all the way from the other side of the world.
Yeah, I'm in England and it's very late here.
So tell us about yourself.
So I am an independent reviewer and I work for a group that I set up with my best friend earlier on this year called the Ghoul Guides. We review mostly horror and alternative, um, anything from books, games, films, comics. We do a lot of work with Kickstarter artists doing promotion. And just generally trying to get independent artists a lot more notice for the work that they do.
Great, and yeah, as some people know, I'm part of a book called Untold, and Pippa was a huge help for us spreading the word around the interwebs and the world. And I'm glad she's here to join us today. And I am Peter Palmiotti. If you don't know me, what are you doing on my channel? Um, um, so
Chris?
off the bat, I did a video just like 2 hours onto my YouTube channel, covering a little bit of stuff. I did a couple of shout outs. ASGARD, Ben's project, was one of them. There's a webcomic called the MEEK, which is being collected. That's on Kickstarter right now. It's an amazingly beautiful project, and I have the link in that video. And there's also, and it's another project to go check out. So I'm shouting out to them here as well. Um, but one of the things I sort of, I guess, began to cover, and I'll talk a little bit more about it now, is um, if I have any skills outside of like comic industry stuff, it's my ability organized. Unfortunately, that doesn't ring true for myself. No matter how much time I put into it, I'm like disarray everywhere, and I'm trying to get much better at it. I've totally redoing the studio yet again, to better, you know, put things in order, and one of the things I want to do is really organize my. There's too much stuff on it that's like, not even necessary or useful. I have like 400 bookmarks, not only on my computer, but like I have bookmarks on my YouTube channel alone, like probably at least 300 or so, to videos that I want to watch, or it's like I gotta trim everything down to the bare essentials, or at least categorize things. And uh, what are you guys that are helpful for your everyday art and business and whatnot? And anybody can just jump in.
This is the love of my life.
No.
My iPad goes absolutely everywhere with me. It has millions of notes, all my contacts, everything, so I would be lost without it, but it means that I can keep on top of everything at any point in the day, and especially with the time differences as well, it means that I can constantly get information in, and it's fine because I can pick it up whenever.
Is there any specific apps you use, or?
Um, no, just generally a lot of the social media stuff. I used to use a collective thing for getting all my notes in order, but it just wasn't enough for me. So I ended up with notepads and all sorts of things. So now I literally just use a notebook in here to keep ahead of things, and my calendar. It's like I've got to keep track of events I'm going to. So I'm going to a comic book convention called the ICE convention, September 10th in Birmingham in the UK. So that's going to be interesting. Um,
What does ICE mean? Stand for?
Independent comic book event, I think. I'd have to remember.
I,
I got invited to come to it, so
I once wanted to start a comic book company called ICE, International Comics Call. I
okay.
never did, but
Gee, there's a new plan for you for next year then.
yeah.
Next project.
So, anybody else want to jump in? Like Ben, how do you keep track of all you've been up to lately?
I don't.
Oh, the honesty. That's great.
Let's just keep it real here. We have no idea what we're doing.
um, I don't know. I just kind of keep the cauldron bubbling, and when I jump in, I just grab whatever. Uh, at least for the comic, I mean, on the comic, drawing the comic, luckily Mega Studio kind of keeps me on track with that. But for everything else, it's still as scattershot as anything. I suffer from like the same problems that you were talking about. Uh, so I really don't keep up with things. And realistically, I keep telling people like when they have commissions or whatever. Uh, And while I'm doing other things, I'm telling people, send me an email. Don't send me a message through Facebook or Twitter. Send me an email. That way it's saved. And when I go through my emails, I'm like, oh yeah, I still got that commission to do. It helped me out that way because of my work schedule and so many things and working on the ASGARD project. I can get real lost sometimes. So the email is my easy out. But for comic creation, Manga Studio keeps me everything in nice one little folder. Like I can go here and say, oh, look what I have to do.
Yeah, it's good for that. My personal thing from being kind of a production guy for so long in so many different areas, I have this habit of keeping a spreadsheet where I actually have like it's weird. There's like a code system that I set up for every job that I'm on, whether it's a comic or a 3D thing or whatever. And so all of that stuff, I actually track my time in 15-minute increments through a spreadsheet, so that I can review like billable hours and things like that and know exactly where my time's going and where my how my income relates to the time spent on any given job. That way I can adjust like billing and things like that down the road. If another job comes in and it sounds real similar to something that I look back at and go, oh, I ate my hat on that one because I mismanaged the time, then I know to judge it differently. And it's one of those things. It's a really sucky part of this stuff because I'd rather just be making art. But I've watched as through the years, once I started implementing something like that, I watched the business side of things start to improve dramatically. So, it's like, well, if I want to do this for a living, then I need to do this for a living. So let's approach it that way, and it worked out pretty well.
That sounds like a really smart way of doing things.
I will say this: when I started, I was 19. I started drawing comics for a living. It was yay, cool. Hey, people are paying me for this. This is awesome. And that was great. It was wild. It was Wild West. It was fun. Blah blah blah. All that crap. And then as I migrated from that into more quote unquote professional looking sorts of environments, really environments where there were like budgets and bean counters, kind of on my ass all the time to make sure things got done, it became very clear to me that that I needed to be tight with that stuff if I wanted to succeed with it. And then coming back to comics through the years later and starting my own business with things, it was just like, okay, yeah, well that made sense. That worked for for those people. So of course I'm going to repeat it for myself, and I am. So yeah.
It's all really good. I mean, that's the kind of things I need to start implementing because I suppose I'm only at the beginning of that. I'm 28, but I'm only at the beginning of finding what it is I want to do. I mean, I know I want to write, and I've got loads of support and things, but it's just I've found myself just sort of not planning the time well, and I'll write sporadically, and it gets me nowhere. So I really do need to have a better plan in place.
Yeah, discipline is like every time I have some younger person ask me, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to be able to do this stuff for a living? I do what you do. I'm like, discipline. Period. Yeah. Whether it's discipline to study, discipline in business, it's discipline.
Time machine would help too.
Yeah. 36-hour days.
That'd be good. I mean, I work 40 hours a week anyway, and then on top of that I do about 60 hours a week doing all the stuff that I do through Google Guides, and then fit in my sleep around that.
That's crazy.
That's yeah.
It's busy.
That's the life of an artist.
Yeah, but that's a great way to build a business. I mean, to have that dedication to put in that amount of time. It's what you need to do.
Yeah, I just really care about the industry.
What I always love is when my quote unquote normal life friends, which is basically the non geek comic whatever people that the few of those are in my life. When they're like, "Oh, it's so awesome! You get to work from home. You're always at home." I'm like, "You don't understand. I'm always at work.
Yeah.
It's not awesome. It's not. It only seems that way to you because you're schlubbing at a job somewhere. And trust me, sometimes I want to go schlub.
I suppose you can never really escape the ideas. You've constantly got things piling in that you want to write down, you want to draw, you know you need to get something done, and you can never really escape it if you're always working from home.
Yeah, yeah. That's I mean, I guess there are far worse problems to have at times, but yeah, it's there is something to be said. It's like I do. Uh, I started like a long time ago. I made sure that I started doing things outside of work, mostly actually very physical stuff like martial arts, because I found that if I didn't first off get away from this crap for a little while and go do something that didn't involve it, I got kind of crazy. And then doing something physical, because I mean, let's face it, a lot of us spend tons and tons of time at sitting on our asses at desks for long periods of time, and that's actually really horrible for your health. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of like to do this for as long as possible, which means it's like well, maybe I should take a little more interest in that. So, and that's actually paid off really well.
No, that makes sense. I spend about 100 hours a week sat in front of a PC because my main job, I work for HP, the computer company, but I'm on a government contract, so I spend all day sitting there.
Mm.
Fun.
I actually, it's just an aside there too, thinking about like where my out from this stuff is martial arts. One of the justifications for it that I was absolutely right in my theory was if I want to draw comics are an action format for the most part. There's always going to be fights and things like that, and it's like, well, how am I, how good? It's like if I can already do an action sequence that's pretty cool, how much better would it be if I actually were going in somewhere and engaging in something physical of that nature for a while? Like, how much practical knowledge could I start to impart into those sequences if I've actually studied some of that, And it's interesting how a study of martial arts, like if you're an artist and you're already studying anatomy, a study of martial arts, you start to learn things about timing and the application of physiognomy and all kinds of cool stuff that you then can put back into your pages. And all of a sudden, these action sequences, like every moment of it starts to make a kind of visual sense that even someone who doesn't understand what you're putting into it still gets something out of it, and it's super cool. So it's like, it's funny how the things that you do outside of this can actually still play into it in some way. And if it plays into it properly, also it can be a tax write-off. So there.
Absolutely. And you can look at comics done by artists and know that they probably had personal experience, like with karate of different kinds and whatnot. Like
Well,
Neil Adams, he probably studied martial arts at some point to do like kind of the fight scenes he's done. Maybe he's looked into boxing, all kinds of
or
fields.
Billy Tucci.
Tucci, yeah.
I mean, good God, man. I love Billy. Love Billy. Love his work. Great guy. And, I mean, just look at the stuff that he does. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that dude was military. It's like there's some serious reality that gets boiled down into the physicality of his character sometimes. Even when he stylizes it, there's still this, it's like, there's some real meat behind that. That's cool. So I
Yeah.
dig that.
Yeah, and it definitely helps, like, pertaining to whatever kind of story you're doing. I mean, obviously we don't live in an apocalypse, but you can
Well,
you can
yeah.
study other things.
Well, like, I mean, like if I go back a few pages, there's a page here of Apocalypse Girl where when she first walks into this tavern, and she walks in, there's this little thing about about visually engaging someone that makes you feel nervous. She walks in, and they're right here, this page, which I don't know how well it shows up through a screen share, but the hand goes across her shoulder, and then everything that she does here is just like tick for tick. The right hand goes up in a block, the left hand prepares the torque of the torso. Then here, that right hand is pulling the arm in, while the left hand is reaching across the arm to take the guy off balance. With the most obvious thing is his beard. There's just little things that, like, you could actually take. I like this idea of doing fight scenes that are almost like just choreographed. Like you could take these and shoot a movie from those panels, because, oh, okay, this does lead to this lead to this. And that's something that's always been kind of an irritation I've had with a lot of comic book art. It's like there's all this great rendering, but then this and oftentimes great, like, cinematic sort of storytelling from panel to panel, but then when it engaged in these physical interactions, it started to fall short. Like, they're like, okay, guy punches this guy here, okay, and it's like there are times when reading comics where I'm like, oh, here's where the writer said fight scene, and the artist says, okay, I've got a page and a half to do a fight scene. And they just kind of do this back and forth thing. And I mean, there's some great art that I'm sure has been created that way and all that, but it's like, man, if you just did a little bit more homework, and it's not a lot, just a little bit of homework, it's like you could do so much more with that. So I don't know, I just dig that.
I like to bring the realism into it.
Yeah, I'm such a movie nut anyway that, like, there's just this weird thing about that. It's like, yeah, I want the stuff to feel, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just kind of this thing that I have about it, and I think a lot of my favorite artists, and favorite. I mean, like you cannot do this stuff if you're doing this stuff and you have not read Will Eisner. Then damn it, stop. Just stop. Just full stop right now. Take a week. Go buy at least 3 of his books, whether it's his academic books on the art form or just something of his to read. Stop what you're doing. Go get those books, and for God's sakes, read them. And read each of them at least twice and study the crap out of them, because Will Eisner is the Bible of visual storytelling. And there's times it's like, because I know Will Eisner was like in the army, and there was physicality in some of his life back then just by the nature of how he lived, and you can see those things evoked in his storytelling. It's just like, yeah, there's a reason why this stuff works. I think that's actually, if you look back at some of the artwork, some of the classics from way back, most of those dudes had been in military service at one point or another. That's not to hype up the military. I'm just saying the fact is, that was an element of these guys' lives. So most of these guys had experienced kinds of physicality that people today don't normally experience. And I think that if you look at the dynamism of artwork from generations ago versus today, I think there's a case to be made that maybe there's some of that plays into how that stuff worked then versus what we see now. And I personally, I miss that. I miss that sort of thing. So, and I try to bring it into my own stuff. So there.
I suppose everything now is quite fantastical rather than following the real life actions of what people were having to do. I'm genuinely jealous of people who have the ability to take what they can see in their heads and put it down on paper for other people to see. I mean, I've tried, and it's just not a skill that I have. But I can take that and I can write what I see up here. I just can't physically show it to people, which I would love to be able to do. But I'm just going to keep on writing because that's my way.
Yeah,
Well, artists need writers.
True.
No, we don't.
So yeah, well, dude, there's plenty of times. There's plenty of times working on this stuff where I'm like, oh God, I'm tired of writing this.
Or you just need extra eyes on it. Like,
Yeah.
am I making sense here? Like, you spend so much time with certain things, you lose sight of looks like to other people.
Yeah.
you mentioned Will Eisner. You know, I posted on my Facebook wall, and that's who the other day uh, that if you never even heard of Will Eisner, you know, working in comics, that you should go learn about him. Uh, he's a master, and
There's a reason there's a thing called the frickin' Eisner Award. That's all I'm
yeah,
saying. Okay?
so
The Oscar of
true.
comics is named after this man. Perhaps you should give him some of your frickin' time, people.
Yes,
Calm down.
he's okay. So,
Breathe.
let's talk a little bit about Kickstarter since I'm fresh coming off one. Ben is on his, and Pipper is totally aware of the Kickstarter universe. Um,
Oh yes.
And I'm completely green
a
to it.
little bit, and you're completely great. Um, it was okay. So my position with Untold, and I've been through this before, was that I'm part of the project. I'm not headlining the Kickstarter, but the difference this time around was that I did have a glimpse to what was going on behind the scene. I don't even know what it's called, but I could see like
You're a
uh,
contributor.
who was contributing, who made the latest pledge, um, and little things like that. It's very interesting. Like you see the amount of people who pledged, but that doesn't match the amount of backers we have because some people come in, pledge, then unpledge or disappear. We had, I don't know, a few of those. Um, luckily, maybe Daniel somewhere down the line can say differently, but I think for the most part, everybody who pledged was solid and looking forward to this project and we'll get this project finished and out. But it's just a really interesting experience being a part of that for a month. Some go longer, some go shorter. Um, and again, not being the host, it's like I'm sharing and trying to spread the word about this. Um, my only contribution so far that people saw of her, um, but it's like, well, here's Johannes's work, and you can guess what I look like over him, I guess. Um, but really, what we sold people on was Johannes's artwork, because not everybody reads like a whole full Kickstarter page. They you know the artwork grabs their attention, and uh, the people involved, they want to support or not support or whatever. I know how I am. I've um, pledged to a lot of Kickstarters, and usually it's a combination of the people behind it as well as the quality of what it looks like. Um, so, just going day after day after day, posting the link on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Pinterest, and I made a couple of mentions in a video too. Um, but Johannes and Daniel um, did interviews and podcasts, and Pippa helped as well. And we had this other guy, I think his name was David Williams, if I'm correct.
I think so.
Uh, what's that?
Yeah, I think it's Dave Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and just other friends of mine, like liking and sharing. I know, at various points we had like a whole ton of people sharing posts and whatnot. especially like when we posted new artwork. That's always a plus. Um, but a month is a long time, and uh, it takes the wind out of your sails to get like inside of it. um,
Oh yeah.
but but it was worth it. I think we're sort of building and establishing our fan base, and if we provide them with a great product, then going forward it will be 8% easier next time, and so on and so on. Any specific experience you've had so far, Ben, that you want to give a glimpse
Well,
of?
for me, it's kind of weird because I mean, you guys went through the whole 30 days,
Yeah.
and I've been in 6 days, or 5 days, something like that. Anyway, I prepared for this for over a year. When I first began Asgard, looking at the money, I already kind of knew. It was like, well, it's probably not feasible for me to be able to afford the production of the book with the coloring and the lettering to pay for that, and also be able to foot the printing cost up front in a timely manner. So, granted, I had a plan of possibly getting picked up with Image, but that was, I mean, realistically, that's like joining. I got dreams of being in the NBA. Well, only a certain percentage, no matter how good you are, is going to get picked. So it really, the realistic term was for me to go to Kickstarter. So after researching Kickstarter, I kind of understood you kind of needed that following ahead of time. So that's why I started the Asgard Facebook page, and just over time, feeding people bits and bits of what I was doing, how it was looking, where it was going. So people were interested over a longer period of time. So when the Kickstarter hit, they immediately jumped on. Um, so that was the only weird thing. Like I said, I haven't been through the whole 30 days, so I have no idea how I'm going to feel. I know the first couple of days I was, watching it very intently, like essentially trying to use the force to make the number go up, at every moment. And then my wife would give me updates every time it went up and things like that. But it did get to a point where a couple of days ago I was like, okay, I'm turning Kickstarter off. I think I was about four or $500 short, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to look at it because I was expecting that hover period of it sitting at a certain number, maybe going up 10 or 15 bucks at most, but sitting at a specific number and just sitting there for a while. I really thought it was going to die out by the end of the weekend, and then I was going to, maybe increase a couple of $100 until the last week where the next onslaught of spiking would go up. I personally, since I'm a one-man show, I really didn't have anyone specifically on my team to go out and, go and share it. So I relied on the community, like Peter and others. These guys just went out and just kept sharing. I would get all these updates of people sharing it. And then it actually caught fire, especially on Twitter when Brett Booth started. I know Brett Booth and Kevin Sharp started retweeting it and sharing it. And those guys are pros, so they have a larger circle. So once you hit that circle, you kind of explode.
Yeah.
It really helped that Brett Booth did the variant cover. So he's kind of tied into it, and his fans are now like, oh, well, I can get that Brett Booth cover of this book. They probably don't even care what the hell the book is about. They're just like, oh,
whatever gets them in the damn door, man.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm still awestruck here that we finished in a week. I really, really just did not expect that.
Yeah, it's funny, man,
Yeah.
with the stuff that I've been working on, and I guess I don't know how long Pete, you and I have been talking and all this, but it's maybe been a few months. Like this
Yeah.
this thing that you see me. Well, actually, what I'm working on here is a different thing. It's actually something for fun, but Apocalypse Girl. Well, Apocalypse Girl's for fun too, but that's another thing. But with Apocalypse Girl, I I have been sitting on a lot of pieces of it. I mean, it's like I said, it's like 40 some pages in now, um, and uh, and I'm actually every time I start to think about doing a Kickstarter, I utterly clam up, and it blows my mind because I'm so used to doing all kinds of stuff with businesses and money and blah 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 professional bull, crap that it's like. But for some reason, as soon as I start thinking about Kickstarter, I just freeze, I'm kicking myself in the ass over it. I'm like I don't even know. I don't even know why I'm freaking out so much and this has been sitting here for a couple of years of advanced work, doing a Facebook page, putting stuff out here and there, and like you guys who manage to do these Kickstarters and succeed with them, you're blowing my mind because I like there's just something to it. I'm not even sure what my hang up is. If somebody can help me figure it out, then I'll probably get past it. But I really don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's just a lack of confidence in my own work, or just a skepticism of the format. But I know the format works. I know that you can succeed with it. So I don't know.
Is it because I suppose the side of it is almost like you're having to go out there and ask people to help you, rather than it just being, I've created something wonderful, and people come to you searching for it, which is how I actually found the Untold in the first place. But because you're having to say, hey, please notice me, please notice what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you know what? I think in the rest of business too, thinking back on my own career, always been something I'm horrible at. I'm absolutely horrible at ringing people's bell, And I think there's just maybe it's I don't know if it's a cultural thing or an upbringing thing or a value thing or something, but it's like it feels like begging, you know. It,
Oh,
it,
Yeah.
it,
I can
it
tell you this: when I started, I had the same mentality of, let's put it this way: I put the Kickstarter together with the mental attitude of, I'm essentially asking people to donate to this book. Now that I look at it, I am positive, 100% positively sure that that was the wrong thought process. Because when you look, say when you start a Kickstarter, you get this backdoor, what Peter was talking about, essentially behind the scenes where you get to see every backer and what reward. No one donated anything.
yeah.
Every bit of money that they put down is for something.
Well, and that's the thing I keep telling myself is no, you're not asking people for money. You're offering them a pre-sale on something.
Correct.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
and maybe an extra, something that they can't get. If you were to sell whatever product you're trying to produce, and you're to sell it at Walmart, they are able to get said product, and that's it. They're not getting it signed. They're not getting anything extra. So they're just getting the basic product. The Kickstarter allows you to get something directly from the creator that's more than what you will be able to buy on retail.
Yeah.
And you really have to think about it that way. You're not necessarily asking people, you're trying to sell them. And that's
Yeah.
the big thing. And from what it sounds like, you could do well because you do this, or as far as art and comics, you do this for an income.
Yeah,
And
I've been making a living as an artist for 23 years now, so
so that gives you a huge advantage. You understand the business side of it, of trying to sell these people on your art and whatever else you're trying to do. So unlike me, yeah, I go to conventions and I sell artwork or whatever, but I'm still more of an artist than the business guy because my normal job is my income versus my art. All this stuff is just extra.
yeah.
When you go into Kickstarter, you really have to kind of be in that mindset of, this is my income, so I need to sell to every single person I can to make as much money as I can to get whatever you're trying to get done. I think you would do well. it's just a pain in the ass trying to do all the sharing, watching all the social networks.
What is something I've wondered is when you go to do a Kickstarter, what kind of time sink does it really seem to take in general to have a successful Kickstarter? Because one of my concerns being, like I'm kind of a bean counter sometimes because of just business concerns. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the evil necessity of being in business.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I've thought about, and I kind of hang myself up on when I start thinking about it, is like, okay, how much time do I need to sink into this in pre-planning? How much time is this going to take up once it kicks off? The pre-planning part's actually not that big of a deal to me to sink the time in there. But once it kicks off, how many hours a day, how much time do I need to be plugging into this?
Okay.
And is there even, and the thing that I keep coming back to is it's like, holy crap, there doesn't even seem to really be a way to gauge that.
Let me say this before anybody else gets in here. If you set up a Kickstarter, say you set it up for a month and a half, 45 days. Say you spend 8 hours a day of those 45 days. So it's a job for a month and a half. If you have a successful Kickstarter, that could be the life of the book for years to come.
Interesting.
That's
an interesting way to look at it.
It is, but I'm telling you right now, you're not going to spend 8 hours a day.
No, well, but I'm just saying, like,
that's not even feasible. I would, what, if I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this could return this. Okay, let's do this. I'm all in. I have no problem with that. But
how many times during the day do you check your email, maybe check Facebook and Twitter,
constantly.
Or maybe just take a break and just start surfing, or even surfing for reference photos, et cetera, et cetera?
There's a large component of my business where I produce content for Poser and Daz Studio users, and it's really a weird kind of thing because a lot of my professional work has come from like professional companies who use those pieces of software a lot of times in like previs and film or games and things like that, and then they'll come across my content and go, oh my god, this content's great, can you do stuff beyond this? And they introduce themselves, so that's cool. But out of that, like both of those programs have user bases of somewhere around 2.5 million people, and because of those markets and the markets of those people, I've got this bit of a following there. Now, how that translates into comics, into Kickstarters, and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay, I know there's a following there, but are they going to go with me here? How many, it's like, and it's weird. It's like I talk myself out of this crap sometimes, and it blows my mind, because usually I am like the most fearless son of a bitch on the planet when it comes to stuff. I'm like, yeah, let's do this, yeah. But for some reason with this, I keep talking myself out of it. It's like, damn, I got to stop this. That's actually one of the reasons that I hooked up with Peter and started listening to his stuff and coming to stuff like this, is because it's like, yeah, I need to engage with other people and see what their experience is like and listen to them a little bit and kind of figure out what my footing is going to be in that so that I can approach it in a way that's going to make sense.
I think realistically I spent approximately 20 minutes a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really not a huge thing, and there's loads of stuff out there for scheduling. So it's like at one point I knew that Dan was far too busy with the Untold. He was far too busy to actually get online and set up stuff. So I ended up going through and scheduling loads of posts to go out towards the end of the project. I mean, that took me 10 minutes, and I had like 20 plus posts that would go out over 3 days.
Are you using something like Hootsuite?
No, that's literally just on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
You can control the scheduling of your posts on feed and whatnot.
Your pre-planning is where everything is done.
Yeah.
If you have like posts and things set up to be used, like I created artwork while I was creating ASGARD to promote it before the Kickstarter. Now I said I was going to use that same artwork to promote it during the Kickstarter. So even if people have been seeing it, there's still people that haven't. So I post one of the pictures there, and I say, yeah, ASGARD Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. We're at this percentage, and people start sharing that. So new people see this artwork. I didn't have to create that artwork on the fly. It was all pre-done. It was all ready. Most of your responses are going to be fairly canned. It's not going to be, you're trying to reinvent the wheel. It's, hey, we're doing this. We're at this percentage. Make sure you thank the people. That's my motto. I always try to thank these guys for doing it. And that type of thing, it's 2 or 3 lines of text. You upload the image to wherever you're putting it, send. And kind of just, you sit back, and I know I've done. I don't know if how I've done it is right or correct versus other people. But I personally feel like these guys, I've noticed.
Oops.
Hello? Oh no.
Don't know what's going on.
I was going to say, one of the things...
It might have booted him like it does to me sometimes.
Weird.
Well, his picture's still there. I don't know. His audio went.
Well, with him talking about the way in which he's doing it and the way in which he's sharing things, one of the things that I found that attracted me more to Kickstarter projects was when people would actually share what the updates were to the perks, the levels that you could back. Because, like you said, people want to see pictures. They don't really want to go and read a huge page.
Yeah.
So I'd be taking screenshots of what the perks were, because then you're literally looking at one picture that says, hey, this much money, you can get this. This is what you can get. Nobody else can get this, or it's limited edition, or whatever. And that brings people straight into going, okay, so that's what I can have, and I've seen the pictures before, so I know how good the artwork is. And, linking that together just drags people in really quickly.
Interesting. Yeah, the stuff that I've done for years with all the 3D content side of my business, like I'm really well versed in selling and very used to working like digital across the internet and all this kind of stuff. And there's a large component of my day-to-day life that's already involved in that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things. It's like a lot of this almost sounds too good to be true for me, because it's like this seems like something that should be such a natural fit into my world that it's almost silly.
All right.
Well, if you need any help with anything, I mean, that's what I do.
My shit died.
Oh.
Figured something happened.
But yeah, I mean, pretty much all
You
I
want to
do
finish your
is
thought,
stuff.
Ben?
If I can try to remember. Yeah, again, it comes to all the pre-work and preparation you go into Kickstarter with. I had to streamline as much as I could because I am a one-man show. So getting as many people involved, even on the outside, just telling people, hey, if you get a chance, feel free to share it. The one thing I wanted to bring up was there are certain guys I've seen on Facebook in particular. They constantly shove their project in your face every day, pretty much the same time of day, in the same rooms every day. And for me personally, I hated seeing that. It's like, dude, I know I've shared your thing. I've donated to your thing. I don't need to see it anymore. I mean, it got to the point where I was getting ready to unfriend some people. It's like, because I'm tired of seeing these 9 to 12 updates every day by the same people showing the same thing.
That's something I'm real fearful of ending up being that guy, because once I start on something, I get, in case you can't tell from hearing me talk, I get freaking aggressive. And, it's like, okay, cool, let's do this shit. And and I get
All of a
super
sudden, goes
aggressive
Macho Man
with
Randy
it.
Savage on your ass.
Exactly, man.
My thing was if I'm going to show something every day, I want to show something different. That's why I had all of this other artwork done. Maybe that'll kind of break up the monotony of seeing the same damn thing every day. Does the update say the same thing every day? Most of the times, these guys would post the link to their Kickstarter which it would show the thumbnail of whatever their Kickstarter is, and that was it. There was nothing more. I mean,
Yeah,
say
see,
something.
that's just nothing.
Yeah,
They're there for your artwork. They want to see the variety. They want to know what it is that you've got to offer, not just, hey, click this link. Because after a while, if you're not getting any variety, what's to look at?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
it's like no matter you could pick any favorite person, actor, writer, artist you love, but if they're at your breakfast table every morning, eventually you're gonna get sick of them. you know, it's like I was heavily promoting Untold as well as doing my own stuff. So it's like, here's an Untold post, and here's 5 other posts that have nothing to do with Untold, and then I'll go back and post about Untold and so on and so on. Yeah, mixing it up is definitely recommended. Um,
it seems like that's something you have to do, or you're going to end up seeming spammy.
yeah,
Even though you really are kind of spamming, you don't want to seem like you're spamming.
Well, it's like if you go to a market and you've got somebody standing on the corner selling something who's just shouting the same phrase over and over again. You just block it out. You don't notice it there anymore. You're more interested in the guy over there that's juggling knives because it's a bit different.
Yeah.
let me mention this on the YouTube channel where this video is posted. I have comments set up, but somebody commented, uh, M- Megadito Child. I don't know how to pronounce it, but speaking of Time Machine, I've always said we live in the best and worst time to do independent comics. If anybody wants it.
I know what they mean.
Yeah.
Because anything can get made, no matter the
This,
quality, no matter how.
yeah, it is. That was always the case. I mean, it's like I remember going to conventions 20, 30 years ago, and people would have little ash cans or just like regular Xerox copies of like their comic that were horrible, but
Oh yeah.
they were creating. Give them that.
No, but I think it was a little bit easier to discern who those guys were. Well, they did an ash can, so their little book was, half the size. It was essentially uncolored for most times, and they weren't placed on the shelves in your local comic book store next to Spider-Man or Batman. Now you have a fully colored, fully rendered comic, no matter the quality, sitting right next to Spider-Man and Batman. For the longest time, I didn't want to do an independent book because I saw what a lot of the independent guys were doing. I'm like, I don't want to do that shit. I mean, that.
Exactly. That's been part of my hang up with some of my stuff is like, I feel like it is, and I don't say this to sound arrogant. I feel like I have a professional quality of work. And I don't. It's
You don't
like,
want to be lumped in with the rest of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, like I look at like what is it, Drive Through Comics or Comixology. There's a few sites out there that have that sell digital comics. It's one of the reasons that I've been very reluctant to try doing a quote unquote web comic because I'm like, yeah, that's kind of okay. I mean, it's like there are great web comics. Don't get me wrong, but there's also such a low barrier to entry that man, it's like when I every once in a while I kind of get this weird bug where I'm like, I'm going to go look around, see what's out there as far as webcomics. And then about 10 minutes in, I'm like, nope, don't want to waste my time with that. Because so much of it is crap. And so I've always been very antsy about my whole, it's like, do I want to be lumped in with all that?
You can say that about everything. I mean, if you decide to make a movie, it's like, oh, well, there's so many crappy movies.
In today's world, there is just so much stuff made that is such utter garbage. It blows my mind how much money is wasted in production on so many things that are just horrible. Like, really?
And it's even worse. The worst part is when you're watching it, like if you're watching a movie or reading, even like professional comics, when you're reading them and you're sitting there going, wow, this guy who wrote this had so much more to put into this that you know damn well the studio just fucked them over with.
Quite
Like
often, yeah.
someone came in, put their grubby hands into the pot, and fucked it up.
Suicide Squad.
Yes. Yes, that movie should have been amazing, and it wasn't. And I'm pissed off that it wasn't.
I enjoyed it.
You know
It should
how
have
you
been the movie to save the DC cinematic universe, and it just made it worse.
I actually enjoyed it, but then again, like I'm one of those people who, like, no joke, one of my top 2 comic book movies ever made at this point is Batman versus Superman. I love that movie.
Why?
I love that movie so much.
Just read Dark Knight Returns. You'll get a better story with the same premise.
But I loved. Here's the thing: when it comes time to watch a movie, I am very good at just turning off, like just shutting down a lot of things and saying, okay, this is a movie. This is not a comic. I'm going to go for the ride with this. I'm going to respect that this is a different take on characters that I enjoy, and I'm gonna go for the ride and see where this ends up. And if it's fun and I enjoy it or it touches me in some way, great. And Batman vs Superman did. Just like I loved Man of Steel. Now again,
I like Man of Steel.
Again, I'm also a huge Zack Snyder fan. Like I love Zack Snyder's work. So
that's what
I love his vision.
I should love his movies because I've loved his previous movies, but I hated those 2 movies. And even judging them as movies without any of the comic textbook, I still didn't like the movies. I still thought there was just way too many things wrong with those movies to enjoy them fully. I'm glad somebody got enjoyment out of them because I feel bad for Zack Snyder.
I wanted my money back.
Like,
here's there are funny things too with me. It's like the caveat for me with both Batman and Superman is there's a certain personal component to those 2 characters that, and this is like super heavy sounding stuff for a second, but I was an adopted kid, and I don't know if anybody else here was or whatever. That's fine if you were, but the way that played out for me as a kid with comics, it was very personal to me, the way Batman and Superman in particular play out, because as a little boy, man, it's like yeah, every little boy has their favorite superheroes and all that kind of stuff, but for me, here are these 2 titans, and I was like, oh, they both lost their families, and it made them this thing that kind of like, it's not really even fair for me to weigh in on anything Batman or Superman related a lot of times because there's this component to them that is just kind of hands off. It's like okay, this is Batman and Superman time. It's like you would have to do some pretty amazing things with Batman or Superman for me not to enjoy it.
So you've never had something of those 2 characters that you did not like?
Yeah. Oh, I have. And his name is Joel Schumacher. I've wanted to throat punch him for about 30 years now, I think. 20 years. I'm just like, no, Schumacher, you need to go piss off. And the old Batman TV series, I'm not a big fan. I appreciate the novelty of it, but I'm not a fan of it. And then like Superman 3 and 4 with Chris Reeves and that travesty of Superman Returns. That was just. I'm like, you guys.
I'm one of the weird guys who actually enjoyed Superman Returns. I actually thought that was not as bad of a movie as people say it is.
The guy played a really good Clark Kent.
Dude, Brandon Routh is an amazing guy. He looked like Reeve. He looked like him.
he did, yeah.
He's a good Adam.
Yeah,
he does a great job as Adam.
I actually
he's
was
crazy.
Knowing that Ralph was going to be Ruth or Ralph, however you pronounce it, that he was going to be in the DC television universe, almost made me bail on even bothering to watch some of it because I just was so ugh with him in Superman Returns. It just didn't work. And on top of that, I mean, I love Chris Reeve. We all love Chris Reeve because Chris Reeve was a tragedy, so we all kind of... But let's be honest. He wasn't that good.
I'm sorry, but I disagree.
He played
good. The character of Superman amazingly. He got his attitude down. He got his morals down. He got everything about Superman
In
perfectly.
the first two movies.
Yes, in the first two movies. I will
And
not.
then he-
I will
and then
not
he had two
admit
more
anything
movies.
of good to those last couple ones because
Those last two movies, just it's like okay, we have
don't
to
blame him for
completely
that, though.
erase that.
Like,
We
I
have to
don't blame
erase
him for
that so it doesn't destroy the legacy there, because that's just horrible. And and again, it's like there's a like I've went back and tried to watch the old Superman movies now, and I'm like, man, it's like 42-year-old me does not enjoy these anywhere near as much as 10-year-old me did.
I still love them.
I
Now, do you
just
think that's because of how far technology's come with the way things are filmed and the way the stories are written and how much darker they can be now? Or is that just because you don't like the kind of Lycra and pants?
there's an element of those.
You don't like the trunks?
There were a couple of things in those movies that just bugged me. That as I got older, it was like it's like the first movie where he flies backwards around the world to run time back at the end.
That was just stupid.
Like that was deeply flawed to be as kind as one can be about it. And then Superman 2, I loved Superman 2. I'm buying it. It's great. I still love it. That's the one that I can watch. Until he does that weird thing where he like flings the S off his chest. I'm like, where? Even as a kid,
nobody knows what the fuck that was.
Even as a kid, I'm like, okay, what just happened? Where did we go? Somebody put this thing back on track now.
I mean, at the same time, as much as stupid it is, it's funny to watch and it's still enjoyable now. Like,
I guess that's the thing. There's a kind of
camp. Like, it's campiness.
Yeah, and
it's the same reason why people watch the Adam West Batman show, because it's campy as hell and it's just fun.
Yeah, and see,
now, that's not my Batman or Superman.
I think some of my problem with that stuff is I very much grew up in the era of Frank Miller. Frank Miller in his prime.
In his prime.
And like I got a soft spot for Frank even today. It's like I look at his stuff today and I'm like, you know what? You keep doing it, buddy. You just keep.
No, let him just stop writing.
I love Frank. I love Frank on many levels. But there was a change that happened and it was great for me as a comic book fan because it happened right about the time. This is so hilarious to say. It's like right about the time I hit puberty. Was when comics grew up too. They really finally got that last jolt of let's go somewhere hard with this stuff. And there's this weird kind of thing. It's like the 90s kind of ruined that a little bit because it became like a competition to see who could be the hardest and who could be the most extreme. And that kind of ruined it.
Extreme, Rob Liefeld.
Well, yeah. And
extreme effort.
Full circle. But it was like there was this effort to become more extreme, and it ruined the good parts of where things had gotten to that point. And now I feel like today there's almost a knee-jerk at times to want to go back before that to a hokiness. So I'm like, can we just take the best of all of it? And,
Well, I grew up, thankfully, in kind of a nice era where I had the Batman animated series, which to me is still the greatest rendition of Batman ever. I will never stop loving that show, and I think there's a lot of people who are trying to adapt into the movies. Like, to me, anyone who makes a comic book movie about Batman or even Superman, because Superman the animated series was amazing too, should have to watch that show and study it before they dare attempt to make a comic book movie.
I can agree with that
because they were amazing. And even the animated movies, to me, are far better than the cinematic movies. Like, when I watched the Suicide Squad movie, I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, I'd really rather be watching Assault on Arkham right now. Because it's so much better.
I enjoyed it for what it was. Like, I went into Suicide Squad with absolutely no preconceptions. And maybe
the one thing that summed up that movie for me the best was there was a person who took a picture of Harley Quinn when she was standing next to Deadshot, and they photoshopped it to where it was Will Smith back when he was on Fresh Prince. I'm
Uh,
just like, oh my god, that is exactly what I was feeling like when I'm watching this movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I mean, it's like okay, there's where I go all like super simple. It's like, you know what? I just enjoyed that movie. It was.
Parts of it were fun. Like, I will admit, a lot of the beginning stuff was enjoyable enough, and I was like, okay, maybe this won't be a dumpster fire. But you could feel the moment the movie shifted to what the studio started wanting them to do instead, rather than what the writers were really trying to push, because they actually cut a lot of that movie and I shouldn't say reshoot, but they had to shoot all new scenes to fill what was cut out, to make that movie end the way the studio started wanting it to do it. And it shows so badly because so much of it just felt really bad. The timing was bad, the pacing,
I like
all
the
of it.
first 30 minutes of the movie.
Yes, the first 30 minutes are actually relatively solid.
I was
I
like,
think there was a little bit.
But I don't mind spoilers. I'm fine with spoilers.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
No, one thing I'm finding really interesting is how all of you are huge fans of like the big comics, the big sort of stories and stuff, and yet it's like for me, because again, it was something I wasn't brought up with, because that whole kind of you're a girl, girls don't read comics. I didn't sort of grow up with anything like that, and because I'm only 28, I didn't grow up with like the main sort of
you
era
just
of
called us
comic
old.
books and stuff. I'm saying that I didn't grow up with them.
Hey, I'm not that old.
I admit I'm an old
25.
Good
Oh,
God,
you're
you're big.
then.
I have a child who's almost as old as you. Good Lord, man.
But one thing to see, because you guys are all interested in that kind of stuff, whereas it's like the only comic books I read, the only comic book art I get, is independent stuff. I'm only interested in looking for independent art and people that are creating something new, and that's all I look out for. Like, I don't go for anything mass produced. Everything I've got, my wall is just covered in stuff here.
You know,
It's
It
only
doesn't
from
make it
seeking out
a
independent.
lot harder
the
now.
funny thing for me with
unfortunately.
comics is I grew up loving my superheroes. I grew up loving my Batman and my Superman and all that stuff. And then, again, mid 80s, right? With the maturing. Really, Dark Knight Returns and The Watchmen. Those two were the game changers. Because
Great
with
books.
those came like I don't know what happened, but it was like at the time I read those, all of a sudden this other world opened up, and I became like that was when I found Judge Dredd. And
There you go.
sweet God in heaven, thank you for Judge Dredd. I found Judge Dredd. I found, I got turned on
Heavy
big
metal.
time. Oh, dude, heavy metal. Esteban Maroto, like freaking Simon freaking Bisley.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the greatest moments in my entire life so far has been that I got to go drinking with him in San Diego a few years ago. Let me tell you, never take a punker from England and shove him in a bar with a hillbilly from Kentucky when they have things in
Bad
common,
idea.
because that is going to get ugly, and San Diego, I think, will never be the same. But it's like I around that same time with that maturing of comics, I think that played a big role in opening the door for a lot of the more mature, because indie comics, existed for a long time and people just didn't really realize it, and the content of those comics was more mature, and so as some of that. It's a chicken or the egg thing. Which came first? The indies being mature, or the maturation in the mainstream stuff. But somewhere along the way, those kind of, for me, there was this convergence. And I actually think it came from the fact that I had to go to a comic shop to get Dark Knight Returns. I had to. And again, like, God, the times we live in, man. The times we live in. I grew up in the sticks of southeast Kentucky. The nearest comic shop to me, no joke, was 2 hours away.
Mine was an hour, so
Yeah.
I'm.
Yeah, pre-internet, nearest comic shop 2 hours away. I got to go to a comic shop maybe twice a year, and
Yep.
I remember Dark Knight Returns. I'm like, we have to go. This has to happen. I must
Yeah, it
have
has
this.
concessions in as well. God, I can't imagine it being that far away. I mean, my nearest comic book store from here would probably be about 45 minutes. And I mean, it's not as much of a big thing in England. Or it sort of never has, because I mean, obviously a lot of the characters in the books are American. So it's always been, it's having so few characters based in sort of British culture. It's never been as much of a huge thing, or it's never been part of something I've been involved in as such.
Well, you never picked up a Cat in Britain story?
Ah, oh God.
Oh, struck a nerve.
Let's not do this.
I'm
This
just
could
really
go to
looking
very
forward to
bad
Aquaman.
places.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Aquaman.
Oh.
Actually,
I keep waiting for him to show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, man. I'm waiting for it.
Pippa, I would love to like chat with you sometime, just one on one, because actually out of those escapades with Simon, I ended up becoming friends with a handful of guys who are all from the Brighton area over there, and at this point, I actually know more people. I personally am friends with more people in and around Brighton, um, in the art community than I am like in person over here in the States. It's kind of sad.
I'm the opposite. I have more contacts to do with art, films in America than I have in the UK.
That's hilarious. A good friend of mine, um, a guy named Tony Luke, just passed away back in February, and he lived in Brighton, had been there forever. I worked on a project with him some years ago called Dominator. It was me and him, and it was actually through that I got to meet Simon, because he had done some character designs and stuff for it, and then we had Alan Grant writing on it, and it was just a really cool thing. But yeah, out of that, I kind of got plugged into. It was a really neat thing. Like I'm actually very jealous of this weird little community that exists, particularly in Brighton, because I swear, like just about every time I turn around, I hear these British names, either writers or artists who I admire, and I'm like, I'll bet you dimes to dollars, they're in Brighton.
Brighton is
And
a very interesting place in the UK. It's very much the art and rainbow kind of area in the UK. It's a fantastic place to go to. I'm much further north. I live in where I live is actually where Tolkien based the Shire on Lord of the Rings on,
okay, that's
and the
that's
city
that's
near where I
kind of
live is what he
that's
based
kind of
Mordor
epic.
on. Um,
I'm super jealous of you now, because damn.
yeah, so I live in an area called Shropshire or Shropshire. But yeah, so he based the Shire on the area where I live, the Shires, and then he based Mordor on Birmingham, which is a big city near where I live, and of course on the trenches in the World Wars. But yeah, so I live in the Shires.
You, I, yeah, I kind of hate you just a little bit right now. I'm sorry.
Aww.
That's horrible.
All
You,
right,
you,
before we go on, I want to mention I just finished watching the first season of Preacher. I don't
mm,
know if any of you.
I
I watched
haven't
like the
watched
first
it.
three
I haven't
episodes.
had time.
I think I have 2 episodes of it left, and I've loved it so far.
Yeah, it's Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon created it. I only read the first trade, and Garth Ennis is a very dark writer.
Yeah, love his
Speaking
stuff.
speaking of dark, I mean he goes beyond Dark Knight.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
ass
that's
face.
and trade, and I put it down and said I can't read no more because my soul feels black.
Oh yeah, you need a bath after you read his stuff.
Yeah, but me and Lisa watched the first season of Preacher, and I absolutely love it. It has such a personality to it, and the characters are awesome, and it's just well directed and
You know,
freaking hilarious. It's
I
it's
think it
it's
translates better to the screen than it did a comic.
hmm.
So I know only the comic parts of it anyway, but I've not watched the TV show just because I haven't had time. But my friend Leaf T, the other person in the Google Guides with me, she's a huge fan. She's absolutely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So I'll eventually end up watching it because she'll make me.
Well, I definitely recommend it. It's sick and weird and
Yeah, he's got like an ass for a
You know,
face, hasn't he, or something?
It's actually not an ass for a face. He's called Ass Face.
yeah.
And there's actually an incredibly, it's beautiful. It's weirdly beautiful in a sick, demented sort of way. It still manages to be beautiful because
The story or how it looks?
the character,
Oh,
the character of Ass Face, because why he's called that and how he ends up being what makes him have that name is an incredibly sad story.
wasn't it? Did he try and kill himself or something, and he like blew part of his
Yeah,
face off or something like
yeah.
that?
He basically blew the bottom half of his own face off.
His mouth looks like a sphincter.
Oh, it's
That's
alright. He's got a
essentially.
straw.
So yeah, it's
But
kind of epic.
yeah, it's really well done. I think the TV show is, definitely worth checking out if you like that. So I want to get with some specific
Vivid.
topics, or we'll move on and end the show. So, Ben, is there anything that's on your mind that you want to cover or maybe announce? I'm going from left to right as I see you guys.
Uh, to announce. No, other than well, you guys don't live anywhere near here. We have our local convention here in Las Cruces. I'll be there coming up. Hopefully, I can get another pinup or something done from Brett Booth because that's the only way he does commissions is only at a convention.
Hmm.
So I talked him into it last year, so maybe I can talk him into it again. No, man. After the Kickstarter crossed the line, I don't really have anything. I'm already working on the new pages for the hopefully the first stretch goal. That's what I'm working on right now. So as far as announcement, I don't have anything, dude. I'm just kind of ecstatic right now, just kind of brooding in my own little pool of joy, knowing that the storm is coming, that I need to get all this other shit done.
Now you've got the work to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, congrats, man. And if anybody watching this haven't checked it out, go to Kickstarter, type in ASGARD. Should come right up, and give it a pledge, give it a share.
Yeah, I haven't
And
backed it yet. I'm going to be doing that. Very good.
all right, there we go. You just pushed it over the edge. Um, so Eric, you've been involved in doing 100 days of making art, and I've been liking your pieces that you've been posting around Facebook and whatnot. You
Well, I
want to
think
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, this is my second go at it. The first time I did 100 Days of Making Comics, where I was working on a couple webcomic things I was doing. This time I pulled it back to just being art because, like, mentally right now I'm just not in it to start the book that I want to start writing. But I didn't want to stop drawing because I had gone like 4 months without drawing. So
Oh, that's
I was like,
you can't do that.
no, I need to do something. So I was like, you know what, screw it, I'll just do 100 days of art. I'm on day 82, I think. Yeah, 82. What you're seeing in front of here is today's piece. I just drew Volna. I've been getting back into Dragon Ball because of Dragon Ball Super. So I've literally been binge drawing the characters for the last like 8 days. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing there. I'm hoping to start the book maybe in a couple months.
Well, that's incredible that you can go from I mean, we all have slumps as artists, where you just you're not drawing for whatever reason, and to jump back in is not always an easy thing. Um, I know personally, I've kind of been there recently myself, and I'm just started getting back into drawing 2 or 3 days ago, just because everything's taking me away from it. It's a tough hill to climb sometimes, but yeah, continue.
Yep.
And Les, have we convinced you to do a Kickstarter?
I'm practically sold on it. My thought process for a long time had been to shop it around and try to find a publisher. And at the same time, though, there's this kind of craziness in me that really loves the idea of. I've been my own boss so much for so long that the more I think about sometimes thinking about a publisher, I'm like, ugh, do I really want to answer to somebody?
Do you
You
really
know?
want someone else to influence your book and make it crap?
Yeah. It's like, are we going to go down that road? Because I know how quick I am to be able to say no. Like the most powerful tool we have in this life is the word no. So yeah, no, I don't want that. No, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, I'm really leaning towards it. You guys are kind of selling me on the idea in a
Get on
big
it,
way.
man.
I
Well, if you
can.
ever need any support, you can always just pop over and bother me about not publishing, publicity side of things.
Yeah, I'm horrible about publicity. That's something that's because for reasons that we've already kind of touched on and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of an area that I know I need help with, and I feel like there's a few like moving parts to this sort of thing that I need to be looking at and get in place, and hopefully I can talk to some of you guys about it a little bit and kind of I don't know maybe
Brainstorm.
yeah, brainstorm and try to get my head on straight with it. You know, I since we're kind of in the wind down mode here, I'll do what I like to do and so be like, hey, check out my baby here. But because I mean, Apocalypse Girl is my baby, but I am available for hire. Um, I do not refuse money.
And the man
Um,
says he doesn't know how to sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do everything for free. I don't get
but
paid for anything I do.
uh, we all need to fix
I
that.
will. I will say, like Ben mentioned, oh, he's a one man act, but nothing is done without a team. He's doing the product himself, but he has supporters above and beyond just himself that helped him, really succeed.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that does need a couple of other people edging your project along, getting the word out. I know, I see the
I,
quality of work, and I think it's a definite sell. So,
Well, I appreciate that. I got out of comics in the mid '90s when things kind of got stupid, like
yeah,
real stupid,
yeah,
and
a lot of people did.
and it's one of those things. It's like through the years, it's like I have entire crates of artwork I've done through the years of just comic pages and comic characters. It's so much art. It's ridiculous the amount of art sitting in my house. Um, so I never stopped doing the art. I just got away from the business because it was such a shit show. And um, I, but now it's so strange because I've been working for so many years digitally, working online sales, all this stuff in things that are not comics, but I've brought a lot of comic stuff to it. And I'm at a point where there's a certain degree like my business is solid. There's a lot of things that I can do. I don't know. It's like I've had a little bit of success, and I've built my way into a kind of freedom where I get to do artwork every day, and I can pick and choose the things that I get to do and be a part of. And I'm like, you know what? By God, it's time to go back into comics and do it the way I want to do it. And it sounds like Kickstarter is probably the way to do that. So I just am nervous about it because being away from comics and there seems like there's a whole way that world has evolved and directions that it's gone in that I was off doing other things and now I'm kind of like, oh crap, there's a learning curve here that I'm a little nervous about. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's like every 2 months there's a new learning curve. I mean, it's the nature of business as a whole. It's like you just have to learn what's going on in today's world and go with it. And
yeah. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at as far as comics go. I actually have always stuff going on there to kind of I want to say on the periphery of comics. Like for the last few months, I've been doing with my 3D stuff. Like if you go to on Facebook, look up or just Google. If you just Google SIXUS1, you'll find me. That's real easy. For the last few months, I've been working with a collectibles company called Collapse Industries. They mainly produce resin kits, and that's such a cool world. Anyway, they um, with them, I've done about 7 sculpts for them that they have in production now, and the plan at the moment, they are actually they're going to be doing a Kickstarter to fund the launch of a product line based on this series of kind of macabre circus characters that I've had sitting around for a while. And so that's going to be a series tentatively of, I want to say it was like 13 collectibles that are like 12 to 13 inch tall, high quality, like sideshow quality. Like the guys at Collapse sometimes get subbed out work from Sideshow. And so anyway, it's this big series of stuff like that, and with that, like there's a show coming up there's Reaper Con, that's kind of a games and collectibles show in Dallas that I'm going to be doing with them, and then the big one, because this relates to so many different things I'm involved in that I can't wait for, is a show in Burbank, California coming up in the spring called Monster Palooza. And Monster Palooza is like, if you like stuff like I'm drawing right here, if you're into monsters and horror, there is nothing great. Monster Palooza is the SDCC of the horror world. And I'm so excited to have like kits and things showing there and sculpts showing there, and it's really funny. It's great because every time I talk to my guys at Collapse, I'm like, you guys do realize I don't actually enjoy doing this 3D sculpting stuff that much anymore, right? They're like, yeah, but we really like what you do. I'm like, yeah, but I really want to go draw comics.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a good problem to have, but it's just funny because one of the ideas that they've been kicking around is like, dude, you have story. I'm like, yeah, all these characters have stories to them. They're like, well, maybe we'll launch the collectibles line and then see if we can build a comic line off of that. Okay, I'm game.
Yeah.
Les, have you ever used Shapeways?
I didn't catch that. It broke up.
Yeah, have you ever used Shapeways? The 3D printing place?
Yeah, I've got a couple of prints here that we've done with Shapeways. They're not bad. There's definitely a huge difference in the quality that we can get from them versus what I can get with the guys at Collapse. They're using, oh dude, it's just awe-inspiring.
I was thinking about getting an ASGARD statue made, and Shapeways was like the only place I had found for 3D printing.
They're good for the price.
Yeah.
That's the caveat there. Is for the cost of entry, Shapeways is really, really good. And shameless self-promotion plug here is when it comes to the sculpting stuff. It's like, and any of you guys that have comic projects and you want to do like a collectible thing, or you want to offer a sculpt, some kind of a cool statuary piece for it, get with me about it, because we do that kind of stuff. We produce the digital sculpts. What's
The
that?
thing I'd love to do with the characters from my book is have something physical to actually look at.
Yeah.
Same.
I mean, that's actually one of the things that I know. Like, I know going in, when we do an Apocalypse Girl Kickstarter, actually a lot of the characters, most of the main characters to the book, when I design my characters, I actually design them as sculpted 3D maquettes first, so that when I draw them, I have something I can turn around. I can put on a turntable and look at it and keep my art consistent from shot to shot to shot. I'm anal as hell about that. But because I've built those characters digitally, I also have them rigged. I can animate them. I can do all kinds of cool stuff with them that is pretty unique to the way our studio works, including, we can go ahead and do, there's actually this one painting of my main character that I love, and the painting was done, like, I actually posed a 3D copy of her to use as a reference, as if I were using a person in a costume as a reference. And the neat thing is I saved that So I have the exact source of that painting that I can have a 3D printed piece made from.
That's
Yes.
really cool.
What interests me about you is you've been in the comic field. One of my biggest complaints have been dealing with 3D artists is comics use a specific proportion, normal human 6 head high versus 8 head, 7 to 8 head of a superhero or whatever.
In heroic comics, there's definitely a language that a lot of your 3D people who go into sculpting or whatever, they don't know the language
Correct.
of comics, so they don't and they don't want to embrace it because they've learned it. They're taught something completely different.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not one of those people because I'm a comic book guy first.
And that's what interests me.
Well, man, let's talk sometime, man. I'm always available.
I actually do have a question with the whole 3D.
All right, let's.
Actually, real quick.
Yeah, let's break this up because I'll end up.
We can do a whole show just on this.
Yeah, we can end the show.
Yeah,
First,
I don't want to eat up
But
too much with that.
so Pippa, you want to talk about anything you're currently a part of? I plug your YouTube channel for sure.
Well, other than Google Guides, everything I do on a day-to-day basis is literally on a day-to-day basis. So like this was not what I expected to be doing at the end of the night. Because it was like, because you'd mentioned this, and I thought I was going to be just kind of watching stuff that was going on. I was like, okay. And I was like, wait, what am I downloading? Am I going to be on camera somewhere? Okay. Fair enough, I'll go put some clothing on then. Because I was in bed, I was like going to go to sleep. But yeah, so no, I'm working on the Google Guides, which you can find on Facebook under www.facebook.com/Google Guides, or just type in the Google Guides. Same on YouTube, because we don't have enough subs yet to get our own like YouTube address thing. And pretty much everything you'll find will be me and my unusual friends reviewing tons of artwork, Kickstarters, books, films, you name it. Events. Yeah, we went to the Star Wars convention earlier on this year with the body cam, so that was interesting.
A body cam?
Yeah, I wore a body cam, like we call it boob cam, for the whole of the convention. So I wandered around in full robe costume, dressed up as a Sith Lord with like a camera strapped to my chest, and we did the whole convention from like first person perspective.
Oh, sweet.
Pretty cool.
Well, I'm going to put everybody's YouTube address into the description box probably tomorrow morning. But if anybody has a special link they want me to include, Facebook message me and I'll include it in there as well. But this has been terrific. We had, I don't know if anybody's watching or aware, but we've had people watching the live show. And also they can watch it anytime after. It'll be up on my YouTube channel. I'm going to try to do these weekly again. Yeah, life has been nothing but chaos, but to definitely do a lot more YouTubing as well as everything else. So, hopefully we can get new people as well as you guys come back anytime. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. You, my audience, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Tell your friends, and I'll give you a virtual hug. Thank you. Last words, or we're all good here?
I want to go to bed.
Okay, go to bed.
No,
Thank you, gracious hosts.
All right, and 3, 2, 1, we are out. Take care, everyone.
Bye.